Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksuran Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shnapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Darati Shapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanando Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we're going to read the second to last verse of the 12th chapter, which describes a person who's very dear to Krishna. So, if you want to become dear to Krishna, this verse will help you understand how to do that. Samaha shatro cha mitra cha tata mana pamanayo shitoshna sukha dukeshu samasanga vivarchita tulya ninda stutir mani santushto yena kenachit anketa stitir matir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. Anyone know Sanskrit? So, sama, who knows what sama means? Equal. Sama shatro cha mitre. Shatro means enemy, mitre means friend. There's another verse like this in Bhagavad Gita, exactly like this. Amazing. Cha, also tataso, mana, in honor, apayamana, in dishonor. So we have equal to what? Friend and enemy, honor and dishonor. Sita, in cold, Ushna, in heat, Sukha, happiness, Dukeshu, distress, Sama, equal opposed. Heat and cold, happiness and distress. This sounds like it's straight out of second chapter, doesn't it? Also a third chapter. Now we're in the 12th chapter. Sangha vivarjita, free from all association, meaning material association. Tulya, equal, ninda, in defamation, stuti, and repute. So the same thing, honor and dishonor. Moni, silent, which means he doesn't speak about football and other such things. Samtushta, satisfied. Yena kena chit, with anything. Anketa, having no residence, means detachment. Stira, fixed. Mati, determination. Bhaktiman, engaged in devotion, may to me, priya dear, naraha, amen. Stakes are getting pretty high here in this verse, isn't it? This is how you become dear to Krishna. I'll read the translation. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. If these were the requirements for joining ISKCON, how many of you would sign the membership paper? Raise your hand. Nobody. Okay, so we have some work to do. Purport. A devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised, and sometimes one is honored. And sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress, or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore, he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak about Bollywood or Hollywood or football or politics, our favorite topics, right? Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials. And the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, and sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree, and he may sometimes live in a very palatial building. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. We may find some repetition in the description of the qualification of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harava bhaktasya kuto mahaguna. One who is not a devotee has no good qualifications. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. So we talked a little bit about that last night. Anyway, let's go over some of the points that Prabhupada makes. The first point Prabhupada makes is a devotee is free from all bad association, and that means a devotee doesn't put himself in an environment which would be antagonistic to their bhakti. And we all know that people have great influence on us, both positively and negatively, and therefore association does affect us. We're not invincible, are we? We're very affected by our association. So, yes. So, when... I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's quite interesting. Well, Lord Chaitanya was asked, what's the symptom of a devotee? He said, devotee is one who associates with devotees and one who doesn't associate with non-devotees. That's what he described. I mean, another time he said one who's always chanting Hare Krishna. But in this case, he said One who associates with devotees. So, if you want to be Krishna conscious, I have a secret. It comes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You want to hear it? You like secrets? This is a secret you don't have to keep secret. He said, if you find a pure devotee, sit down next to them when they're chanting japa. And chant japa with them, because their japa will affect your japa. Or you can say, do kirtan with them, because their kirtan will affect your kirtan. Anyone have that experience? Now, I could give you the opposite instruction. If you really want to mess up your Krishna consciousness, find somebody who's materialistic and become best friends with them. How can I say that? That sounds harsh. Well, there's another amazing verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Lord Chaitanya said that if a man intimately associates with a woman that he's not married to, he will become entangled in material life. But there's something worse than that. Who knows what's worse than that? He said, worse than becoming attached to a woman for sense gratification is becoming attached to a man who's attached to a woman. Because he will influence you even more, his association. So now, I have a question for you, based on this verse. You're walking down the street, minding your own business, doing Harinam, and you and a friend, a female devotee. No, you're doing Harinam alone. And you meet a female devotee, and she says, can I join you? She's very Krishna conscious, so she joins you. And then there's just some materialistic guy on the street, this ordinary guy, and he says, can I join you? And you say, sure, okay. Then you all three get arrested. And you come to the police station, and we said, we're throwing you in jail, but you have a choice. You can go into jail with the devotee lady in one cell, or you can go into jail in one cell with that guy you just picked up on the street. What do? What choice do you make? Is that an interesting question? That's an interesting question. What would you do? We should never be alone with a woman, should we? But now Lord Chaitanya says it's worse to be alone with a non-devotee who's attached to women. That will have more of an effect on you. And we know our Shastra says, don't be alone with a non-devotee, better be alone with the tiger, that's safer. So, you don't have to answer the question because it's never going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But anyway, this is what Lord Chaitanya said. The association of someone who is attached materially will have a more detrimental effect than being in contact with things which you're attached to. Isn't that amazing? So, what do we understand from that? The devotee always tries to put themselves in a good association. And, Hare Krishna. And, Hare Krishna. But can't you make it loud out without making it loud here? Krishna. Yeah. I completely forgot what I was going to say. It's all your fault. So here's a little secret, secret number 2. We are affected by our association, correct? Understanding that we're affected by our association and affected by our environment, if we want to go up, then we want to create the right environment that picks us up and get the right association. And automatically that environment will pick us up, right? If you want to go up, but you create an environment which is pushing you down and associate with people that are pushing you down, you're going to be paddling upstream. You're going to be making it difficult for yourself. Right? Now, sometimes a devotee says, but I'm in an environment which isn't helping. It's like antagonistic. To which we must ask the question, who created the environment? Because sometimes we're in environments that we create, and we're blaming the environment. The environment is causing negativity in my life, but we created the environment. Right? Like maybe your room is dirty and messy, and that is making your mind dirty and messy. Well, that was your room that you made dirty and messy. Now, does that make sense? Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave the definition of association. What is intimate association? He doesn't say that just associating with people in general is really considered detrimental association. But he says, association is really where you open your heart. You give your heart to someone. That's real friendship. He said, when you open your heart and they open their heart, that's where association takes place. So when we say don't associate with non-devotees, it doesn't mean we walk down the street and someone says hello and you say no hello to you. You're not a devotee. Or you get married and your in-laws are not devotees, so you go to their house but you don't look at them and you don't talk to them because I don't associate with non-devotees, and you're a non-devotee, unfortunately. And right here it says in the Nectar of Devotion, better be locked up in a cage with a tiger than be associating with you, so I have nothing to do with you. That's not what it means, but it means revealing your heart, intimate relationship. In Nectar of Instruction, we are told that one of the loving exchanges is to reveal your heart. So that's how association takes place. That's how you become influenced. People exchange their heart, what's going on inside. So if you ask a devotee, reveal your heart to me, he may reveal some lila. That's what's going on in his heart. Reveal what's going on in your mind. I was having these realizations, I was thinking about Vrindavan. So naturally, you get inspired. So, in Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, Prabhupada says, a Mahatma is one who always maintains a life in which he will have realization of Krishna. He maintains a lifestyle in which he will have realization of Krishna. And he's careful to do that. To live in a way that you get realization. And then Prabhupada said, because he understands that he needs realization to get out of the material world. So I'll share my realization about realization. Imagine you're lost in a forest and you don't know whether to go north, south, east, west, east or west, or northwest, northeast, southwest or southeast, or anywhere in between. You just don't know where to go. And the clouds part and you see some stars and you know something about stars because you used to be a sailor, and you get some realization that this is the way out if we go this way. Realization is just like that. When you get a realization in Krishna consciousness, it's a little information, a little more information how to disentangle yourself from the material world. That's a realization. Krishna's giving an insight. Here, do this. This is the right thing to do. This is going to get you out. Like, we're all tied up, and there's like knots everywhere, legs to head. We're all tied up. Where's the next? And Krishna gives you a realization. Pull that one. Oh, that came out. Wow. Pull this one. If you pull this one, it'll disentangle your whole leg. Those are realizations. Any of you ever have those kinds of realizations? Where you feel, wow, thank you, Krishna. Yes, thank you. You gave me some insight. So Prabhupada is saying, devotee is careful to live his life in a way that he always gets realizations. Because realizations are your GPS out of the material world. Isn't it? Realization is your GPS out of the material world. Without realization, you don't know where to go. Now, sometimes Maya reprograms your GPS. So you think it's Krishna and it's not. That's another discussion. would become misdirected. Okay. So, the next point. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. I don't think there's anyone in this room who has not been criticized and glorified, and sometimes by the same person. You want to hear my new hit song? No one, this is the chorus, no one ever said they love me who didn't also say they hate me. You like that song? Is it true? He knows it's true. Right? Who says they hate you? The one who says they love you. Isn't it? So we all have been hated and defamed, and we've all been glorified. So what does Krishna mean by saying he doesn't care if he's glorified or not glorified or criticized? How could somebody not care? Well, Krishna says something very interesting in the second chapter. He says if you care, you're always going to be pulled one way or the other, and you're never going to get out of the material world, because every time someone glorifies you, you're very happy. You feel very warm and fuzzy. That feels good. Give me some more. Very nice. And sometimes, then when people defame you, criticize you, you don't feel good at all. So now your consciousness is going up and down like a yo-yo. So you could call this part of the verse, the yo-yo section. Because Krishna is saying, don't go up when things are good, don't go down when things are bad. Now, one of the most interesting verses I find in the Gita, just from a philosophical or discussion aspect, is the verse where Krishna says, don't be happy when you're happy. I don't know if you know how to do that. You know that verse? Don't be happy when you're happy. How do you do that? Isn't that an interesting verse? Don't be elated by happiness or distressed by distress. These are all the yo-yo verses. Bhagavad Gita has many yo-yo verses. Don't go up when things are good. Don't go bad when things are down. Don't be happy when you're honored. Don't be miserable when you're criticized. Don't be happy. Don't be suffering if it's too hot. Don't suffer if it's too cold. Then Krishna says something which is even more amazing. Don't even care if you win or lose. You succeed or fail. So you can hire me to come to your corporation and I'll give a lecture, and the first thing I'll say, it doesn't matter if you succeed. And immediately I'll get kicked out, right? They'll kick me out. What are you talking about? I thought you were a success coach. I say, I am a success coach. If you want to be successful, don't try to be successful. Try to be equipoised. Isn't that interesting? You'll be successful if you don't try, by being equipoised. You will not be affected by the ups and downs. If you're not affected by the ups and downs, you'll be steady. Then you'll actually be successful. But if you're up and down like a yo-yo, you're not going to be successful. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, don't try to be successful. That's how you'll be successful. You find that interesting? So the word is sama, equal. And you'll find many, many verses in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying you have to be equal. And when you're equal, now you're in a position where you can practice spiritual life. But if you're up and down like a yo-yo, then that's what everyone's like in the material world. So it's time for a story. You like stories? Stories are better, I think, than philosophy, because they put the philosophy into perspective. So, once upon a time, Prabhupada was on an airplane, and people were smoking, because in those days you could smoke on the airplane. There was a smoking section and a non-smoking section. When we start our own airline company, we'll have a chanting section and a non-chanting section. So, some rugby players were on the plane, and they decided they're going to smoke in the non-smoking section. So, Prabhupada's servant asked the flight attendant, could you tell them remind them it's a non-smoking section. So she did, they stopped smoking, and later on they started smoking again, and then he pressed the flight attendant button. And Prabhupada said, just tolerate it. And then Prabhupada said something which I think is one of the most important things for the average devotee that Prabhupada said. One of the most relevant and powerful things, which I will tell you on my annual trip to Brisbane when I come back next year. Is that okay? Because otherwise you may not want me to come back. This may be the only reason, is to hear that most powerful instruction. You can write this instruction on your refrigerator, you can make a t-shirt, you can get a tattoo, whatever you do, it's powerful. So Prabhupada said, just tolerate it. And then he said, if you can't tolerate it, what is the difference between you and an ordinary person? Isn't that interesting? If you can't tolerate it, what's the difference between you and an ordinary person? And you could put many things in the first part of the sentence. If you can't control your anger, what's the difference between you and an ordinary person? If you lose your mind when things are good and you lose your mind when things are bad, what's the difference between you and an ordinary person? You want to know the answer? You wear tilak and they don't, but other than that, pretty much nothing. Sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes the only difference is the neck beads and the japa mala. But in behavior, not always a big difference. And so I think it's a powerful question to ask yourself. If you're acting in a particular way, which is not the way Krishna says to act, but you're doing the yo-yo dance, up and down, things are good, things are bad, happy, sad, frustrated, intolerant, then you ask yourself the question, since I'm being so intolerant, what is the difference between me and an ordinary person? Unfortunately, the answer will be basically nothing right now. The answer may be, actually, there is a difference. I'm worse right now than the ordinary person because I'm not controlling myself. Isn't it? Now, I have a mathematical equation for you. And this mathematical equation creates problems for devotees. You want to come in? We could move all the men move right up to the front. We can bring you all in.
There's lots of space in the front for the ladies also, so
Don't worry, I don't have a razor blade. I won't shave your head. Whenever we would do programs in America, I'd always noticed that people would sit as far back from me as possible. I think they thought I was going to shave their head. Because they saw all these brahmacharis and they think, he's going to convert me. Hare Krishna. So, here's a mathematical formula for you. I am a devotee. A devotee is good. Therefore, everything I do is good. Have you ever practiced that formula? I am a devotee. Devotee is good. Therefore, devotee plus good equals everything I do is good. Because a devotee equals good, therefore what I do equals good. That's a huge trap. Because I think I'm a devotee and devotees are good, then I do something not good, but I think it's good because I'm a devotee. And Prabhupada is showing this mathematical formula doesn't work by saying, what's the difference between you and a non-devotee, ordinary person, if you're acting this way? So that's a trap we sometimes fall into. I'm a devotee. Devotees are good. Therefore, I'm good. Whatever I do is good. This was something very common in the early days of ISKCON. We did many things which were not good, which we thought were good because the devotee could only do good. So stealing flowers from the neighbors is good because the flowers belong to Krishna and they're giving them back to Krishna, so that's good. I don't want to tell you what else we stole, but we stole many things. And of course, we were merciful to the people we were stealing from because they were then engaged in devotional service. After all, it all belongs to Krishna. So, why waste Krishna's Lakshmi? So I'm a devotee, I can only do good. Now, one of the reasons that's a problem is if you think you can only do good, then when you do bad, you don't notice you're doing bad because you think devotee can only do good. Right? That would be quite dangerous if you became a guru and thought like that. I'm a guru. Guru is representative of God. So whatever I do is good as God. Hey, let's go to the beach. Hang out at the beach. I'm guru. Whatever I do is good. Because I'm a representative of God. That would be dangerous, wouldn't it? Not would be. It is dangerous. Many gurus do that. Because I'm guru, I can do anything. Because I'm husband, husband's always right, wife's always wrong. So I can do anything. Because I'm the husband. You should follow me. That's what it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Your husband can be this or that, you have to follow him. That's dangerous. It's dangerous to follow a guru who is not pure. It would be also dangerous to follow a husband who thinks he can do anything and demand his wife to follow him. One time, a devotee was reading Bhagavatam. He said, Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavatam that the wife should follow the husband. Does that mean my wife should do whatever I tell her to do? And Prabhupada said, and you should be so arrogant to think like that? Yes? I'm the husband. I don't have to do anything. She just has to do it all. So that's the danger. That we get in a position and we think, this position is good, anything I do in this position is good, everyone has to say it's good. Even if it's not good, we don't even notice it's not good. I'm intolerant, I'm angry, I'm irritable, I'm dishonest, whatever. But I'm a devotee, so it's all good. So, these are called the yo-yo verses, right? You know that guy who plays the cello? What's his name? Yo-yo something? Anybody know him?
Yo-yo Ma.
Yo-yo Ma. How many of you know Yo-yo Ma? Only a few. I was just trying to make a connection to remember these. If you know Yo-yo Ma, you can remember these verses. As he plays the cello, one side to the other, up and down, back and forth. So these are the yo-yo verses. And Krishna is saying, if you want to be steady and you want to transcend the material world, you can't be a yo-yo. You have to be equipoised. Good or bad, you have to stay steady. That way you can practice Krishna consciousness. You can be determined, you can be tolerant. You won't be swayed and pulled around. Now, isn't it a fact we are often pulled around by our mind and senses? Rather than pulling them, they pull us. Yes, you have that experience? You try to go this way, you end up going that way. So that's not the kind of life that Prabhupada expects of us. A life where we are controlled by our passions, by our attachments, by our repulsions, by our desires. And that's why these verses are here, to prevent that. Don't be pulled. Because if you are, you're not in control of your life. Your life is controlled by what? Heat, cold, happiness, distress, victory, defeat, fame, infamy. Isn't it? It's controlled by that. I can't be happy if everyone in this room, after this lecture, doesn't tell me that I'm the greatest thing that ever came to Brisbane, that they've ever seen. And if you don't tell me that, I'm never coming back again, and I won't like any of you. That would be quite a awkward way to live, wouldn't it? And I can't be happy if it's hot, and I can be happy if it's cold. And I can't be happy if I'm not victorious. I can't be happy if I fail. We can't live that way. That means we're completely controlled by these things. So if we understand these verses more deeply, Krishna is saying, don't be controlled by all these things. Equipoise, samatva. One of the... Well, this teaching, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this teaching is sprinkled throughout Bhagavad Gita. Be equal. Be samatva. Don't be a yo-yo. Okay. Now, what does Prabhupada say? Doesn't speak anything not related to Krishna. Here's another secret, insider's secret. In the spiritual world, what do they speak about? 3 guesses. Starts with K and ends with A. Yeah. And they also speak about another one. Starts with R and ends with A. Radha. They speak about Radha and Krishna. If you want to go to this, and what do they speak about in the material world? Bollywood, Hollywood, sports, and politics, and what the neighbors are doing. Pretty much, right? And you know, technology, science, fashion, so. Now, here's the insider's secret. If you speak the language of the spiritual world, that's where you go. If you speak the language of the material world, that's where you go. Because this is the language of this world, if this is the language you speak. I'm not talking about English or Hindi. I'm talking about the language of devotion, or the language of what we call Gramya Katha, village talk. If you speak the language of this world, that's where your consciousness goes, and that's where you take birth in the next life. If you want to go to the spiritual world, you have to speak their language. Imagine you're on your way back to Godhead, and you got to the gates, and they said, you know, up here we only talk about Krishna. And you said, you mean you don't have any Bollywood magazines? You don't have any sports magazines? Car and Driver? Sports Illustrated? Time? Newsweek? Whatever you have. No, we don't have those. Let me think about it. You have a waiting room? And we only talk about Krishna, that's what you do here. Right? So, if that's how we feel down here, how can we go there? You wouldn't even want to go there, because that's what they do. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So, now you might say, a devotee only talks about Krishna. That's weird. Sometimes I do yoga. I'll do a kirtan with some yoga people. So they want you to chant Shiv, Shiv, Ram, Ram, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Don't chant Hare Krishna because they might think we're weird or fanatics or whatever. But I like chanting Hare Krishna, so usually I convince the organizers, just let me chant Hare Krishna because they'll survive, don't worry. And I tell them, I have a song, this is my favorite song, it goes like this, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, I tell them I'll chant. And some people say, why don't you chant anything else? And I tell them, if you're in love with Susie, do you chant the name of Julie? You chant the name of the person you're in love with. So, this is the idea. One devotee, Gaudiya Math devotee, was very close to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada's bhajan is to speak. That's his worship of Krishna, is to speak about Krishna. And Prabhupada was always speaking about Krishna, and he loved to speak about Krishna, and he could speak non-stop. He just loved it. He could speak all day and speak all night, and he wouldn't be tired. And that's basically what Prabhupada did. Most of the day, he was actually talking about Krishna. Sometimes he was reading his books, and speaking to devotees, and speaking through letters. So that's what happens. Krishna becomes so attractive, you like talking about him. And when you talk about him, what happens to you? You become inspired. Okay. Okay, here's a big one, a big qualification. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Okay, want to hear another story? There was a devotee who, what we call in ISKCON, or who was, what we call in ISKCON mental. I think outside of ISKCON they also use this word, mental. I mean, you're indecisive. Should I do this or should I do that? Should I go to this temple or should I go to that temple? Should I do pujaari work or should I distribute books? Should I sweep the temple or should I mow the lawn? I just don't know what to do. That's called mental. Right? So there was a devotee who became mental. He wrote a letter to Prabhupada. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? Prabhupada wrote him back. He said, a devotee is simple. All he wants is a place to lie down, a little prasadam, and some service, and he's satisfied. And I can tell you from my personal experience that when devotees got mental, that did not make Prabhupada happy, because he wanted us to be satisfied. With 6 feet to lay down, or 3 meters, however you look at it, a little plate and a bowl and a spoon for your prasadam, a couple dhotis, couple saris, and Bhagavad Gita and some service, and be happy. Devotees first went to Vrindavan. All the brahmacharis were sleeping. There was no room. They were sleeping on the roof of the building, and devotees were saying, Prabhupada, I don't think they'll be able to do that, or it'll be difficult. And Prabhupada said, no, they're brahmacharis. They sleep on the top. That's where we slept. When we first went to India, to Mayapur, we slept on the veranda of the buildings, because there were so few rooms. So devotees were set up, that's where they lived. Their sleeping bag on the veranda, that was their room. When I first went to Mayapur, we had a little outhouse. That's where we took care of our business. And that kund next to Prabhupada's Samadhi is where we took our bath. That's what we had, you know. Be happy, be simple. Don't be mental. That's how Prabhupada wanted us to live. Now you may know the story that Prabhupada was traveling through Delhi on their way to somewhere, but not intending to stop in Delhi. And one man met him at the train station and said, you should start a temple in Delhi. And Prabhupada ordered 5 devotees to get off the train. There was no plan for this. He ordered 5 devotees. Get off the train right now and start a temple. How many of you know that story? Okay, since you haven't heard it, I'll just explain it a little more. Devotees are traveling around India with Prabhupada. So they're on their way from somewhere to somewhere. And Delhi was in the middle. So the train, naturally stops in Delhi for whatever, 10, 20 minutes. And there was a man that wanted to start a temple and had been corresponding with Prabhupada. And he met them at the train station and said, that's one story. Another story I heard was he was on the train and convinced them while they were traveling that they should start a temple. And he has a place for them. And he can take care of them and they can preach. So Prabhupada picked 5 devotees. He said, you, and you. Get off the train and start a temple. What do you think of that? And who would like to guess how much money Prabhupada gave them? 0. Get off the train, start a temple. No money. A devotee is simple. Amazing, isn't it? And the man was so cheap, there were 5 of them, and he tried to fit them all on his motor scooter. And the rooms were rat infested. It was just horrible. And there are many stories like that. For the service of Krishna, somehow devotees are satisfied. He may sometimes live underneath a tree. He may sometimes live in a very palatial building. He's attracted to neither. So, if you can be happy under a tree, then you can live in a palace and not get affected by it. If you can be happy when people are criticizing you and not be upset, then you can accept all the fame in the world and not get affected by it. Isn't it? If you can live in a distressful condition, you can tolerate happiness and not become bewildered by it. That's the secret. You have to be able to do one to do the other. And Prabhupada said, when he started his mission, when he left home, he said, Krishna took everything. He took my business away. Everything was taken away. I had nothing. And then Prabhupada said, when Krishna took everything away, Krishna wanted to see, well, what's he going to do now? He has nothing. Is he going to go home, cry to mama, and give up? Or is he going to continue? And of course, we know Prabhupada didn't give up. So later on, as we know, Krishna gave Prabhupada everything. So Prabhupada said, later on, he gave me everything. Just as he took everything away, he wanted to see what I would do. Then he gave me everything, and he wanted to see what I would do. So he passed the first test with flying colors, therefore he passed the second test. And when he passed the second test, which of course was an example for us, then Krishna is willing to give him everything. So you pass the first test, more likely you'll pass the second test. If you fail the first, you'll probably fail the second. But if you pass the first and pass the second, then Krishna says, I can trust you. I can give you resources, I can give you fame, I can give you anything because you're detached, you don't care. And if it's all taken away the next day, you don't care. Because that's not why you're doing service. It's not for fame, it's not for position. Because I took it away from you and you were still happy. You were living under a tree and you were happy. So I can give you a palace now. That's how Krishna works. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. So what's the determination of a devotee? The determination of a devotee is like this. I was once giving a class, a Sunday feast, and the devotee asked me a question. I'd probably been a devotee maybe like almost 40 years at that time. And she said, how is it that over all these years you've been able to maintain Krishna consciousness? Like, how are you determined? And one of the secrets that I've always found was that whenever things get difficult, I always ask myself, what are the options to Krishna consciousness? And the answer is always, there aren't any. So no matter how difficult Krishna consciousness is, what are your options? Give up your spiritual life, compete in the material world, try to get ahead, try to be happy by collecting things and becoming successful and a leader in society. That's really difficult. That's really hard. So one of the reasons a devotee is determined is because he's attached or she's attached to being Krishna conscious. Because he or she knows there's nothing else that comes light years even close to it. So why should I put my energy into anything else? Now, Prabhupada many times begged us. He begged us to make this life the last life. He said, be Krishna conscious, give this life to Krishna. You've had 1,000,000 lives before this. If it doesn't work out, you'll get 1,000,000 lives. Just this one, give it to Krishna. He was always begging, this life, give it to Krishna, give it to Krishna. Just understand the opportunity, give it to Krishna, give it to Krishna. That's where we get our determination. This opportunity. Now, just so you can understand this opportunity, put it in perspective. Lord Chaitanya comes every 8,640,000,000 years. He comes every yuga, but not in this form. In this form he comes once in a day of Brahma. That's 8 million, something like 8,640,000,000. Give or take a few 100 million. But it's a long time, right? So, Lord Chaitanya comes every 8,640,000,000. And then when he comes, that one time, he hands out love of Krishna in the mood of the residents of Braja, which he otherwise doesn't give, and there's no way to get that kind of love. You can only get it in this Kali Yuga. Did you know that? Yeah, you can only get it in this Kali Yuga. Other Kali Yugas you can get love for Lakshmi Narayan and love and awe and reverence. But in this Kali Yuga, you can get love endowed with the mood and intensity of the residents of Vrindavan. Ragatmika Bhakti, spontaneous bhakti, you can get it. But you can only get it once every 8,640,000,000. Now, I have some news for you. All of us just happen to end up at the right place at the right time. One chance out of 8,640,000,000, and here we are. That's amazing. The odds are against us, right? And now we have the mercy. So that's why a devotee is determined, because what we have is so rare. It's never given except every 8,640,000,000, and we're here, and we get it. That's why a devotee is determined, because he doesn't want to give up that. Right? We were in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada was speaking, and some devotees were leaving. And he said, before you became a devotee, you were all rogues and demons. You know, we weren't offended because it was true. Prabhupada was just stating the fact. And he said, and if you leave this Krishna consciousness movement, again, you'll all become rogues and demons. It was, Prabhupada was making us aware that if you leave the association of devotees, this rare opportunity will be lost. In the same lecture, Prabhupada said, this movement will go on with you, it'll go on without you. But if you stay, then you'll get the credit. But if you go, it will still go. It doesn't need you. So Prabhupada was kind of turning things around to make us realize this movement is here for us. It's not that it's depending on us, but it's an opportunity. And whether we stay or leave, it's going to continue. But if we leave, we won't be able to take advantage of it. So that's why a devotee is determined, because he realizes this is a rare opportunity. And Prabhupada was endlessly trying to make us aware of how fortunate we are, and how easy it is, and how high we can go in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So do you have any questions? Or did I scare you? You need some tranquilizer now? Questions, comments? Arguments? Let's have an argument. It'll wake everybody up. Controversy. Controversy wakes us up. Yes? Thank you.
One of the controversy always we face, we are always contaminated by the so-called association, not the real association, in the workplace, in the shopping center, or wherever we go.
Contaminated by the association of the material world.
Yeah. How to get rid of
How do you
this
get?
type of thing without disturbing the...
Oh yeah, how not to be effective without disturbing people. Yeah. Inoculation, a strong inoculation. A strong inoculation is a strong morning program. And then you're inoculated, and you won't be affected. And rather than be affected, you'll be emanating Krishna consciousness. They'll see that you're blissful, you're happy, and they'll say, what's wrong with you? Why are you happy? You're at work, you're not supposed to be happy. And they'll ask you why. So rather than you going down, you'll bring people up. So you have to have a strong morning program, strong japa, reading Prabhupada's books, and then you go out, you'll be fine. If you don't have that, yes, it's going to be difficult. Because you need that insulation, inoculation. And then if you get that inoculation, you have a very positive effect on people. Your Krishna consciousness then becomes a gift to everybody. So when you help yourself, automatically you help others. It's natural. Yes? So that's very important. So we stop now for our talk, okay? Thank you very much. I've brought with me some CDs of my workshops, so they'll be out somewhere, available for you. And I have a website, mahatmadas.com, and you can access videos and audio and articles if you're interested. Hare Krishna. Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai.